I'll take a look at this animal right here. You're gonna see he kind of limping. You know, and I let him out back here yesterday. And what probably happened was that he was probably eating some food. And one of these bigger animals ran up to him and hit him is probably what happened. But I'm not worried about it. He's over here by the side of the building. I'm gonna go and get him. I don't think his leg is broken. If it was broken, I could see it, and he wouldn't be putting any weight on it. Let me go take a look at him. No, he's just kind of hobbling. Yeah, what probably happened is he probably sprained it. He was probably eating something, and one of the bigger animals probably came up and hit him. And I'm gonna see if I can get them out back on the pasture. He kind of hobbling around on it, but I'm not worried about it. It's definitely not broken. If it was broken, I could see it. All right, a broken bone. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know what a broken bone looks like. It's not broken. You can tell he's hobbling on it, but he probably sprained it. If it was real bad, he wouldn't put any weight on it. But he's hobbling on it. And so what probably happened was that he was probably eating some food, but that's also one of the things is like when the animals are small and you put them near a big animal for the first time, and they're just eating food, they won't know that the big animal is going to come up and hit them from the side. And that's also why I don't like mixing the small animals with the big animals. I really don't like mixing the small, because the way that I look at it is that the market weight for my animals right now is about the target market weight is about, and this one he rubbed all the hair off of his back, but I gave him a pour-on dewormer, and so he should be growing that hair back here pretty soon. And he was a balling calf when I first brought him in. He hadn't been weaned, so he's got a lot of diarrhea on his rear end, but he's perfectly healthy. But that's one of the things is like I don't like mixing the small animals with the big animals, because like this animal right here, he's probably about 350 pounds, and the big animals the big animals are 700 pounds, 600 700 pounds. I don't know why he's not going out to the back. And so when like if I got a 350 pound animal next to a 600 pound animal, the 600 pound animal is twice the animal size. And so but that's what happens. I mean, thankfully it's not that bad. I mean, he's just kind of hobbling around, not this one but the other one is kind of hobbling around on it, but it's not too bad. He didn't break a leg or nothing. And so but this morning I actually did go and get some more fertilizer. I decided that I'm gonna buy fertilizer. I don't know why he's not going out to the back. I got to get this animal out to the back pasture. He's just been laying out in the front ever since he got back here. I want him to go out to the back and eat. I don't know why he keeps coming around this way. And he just doesn't know what's going on. So I got to, but I did go ahead and go and get fertilizer this morning. And let me see if he'll go out back there. Yeah, I think he sees him. I think he sees him. All right, there you go, Bubba. Let's go. Yeah, but this morning I did go ahead and get fertilizer. So I'm taking a look at my whole situation, because I haven't bought anything this month. I bought a couple $100 worth of antibiotics, and that's all I bought. I didn't buy anything else. And so I went ahead and I bought some fertilizer this morning. I was actually taking a look at my budget. I was taking a look at what am I going to do this month, and what's it going to cost me. And I believe that a reasonable budget to run my farm for the next month, because March is already over, right? I already said, at the beginning of March, I actually said I'm probably not going to spend any money. And I bought like it was like $370 worth of antibiotics, and that's legitimately all I bought. I didn't buy anything else. I didn't buy any grain. I didn't buy any fertilizer. I didn't buy anything. I bought maybe $370 worth of antibiotics, and that's all that I bought for the entire month of March. And I was actually saying that at the beginning of March, I don't think I'm going to spend any money this month. I don't think I'm gonna spend any money this month. And this grain is actually the grain that they have left over from last night. So the animals are definitely not finishing their feed. And I actually said at the beginning of March, I don't think I'm gonna spend any money. And I ended up using about 370 bucks on some fertilizer. Or not fertilizer. I ended up using $370 on some antibiotics, and that was all the money that I used. And and I'm actually growing my business, and I actually have some money. I had some money just sitting around, and so because my business made more money, right? I actually made more money than I had, a couple of $1,000s, and I had about $900 something left, even after even after everything. And so I went ahead and I bought some fertilizer. And I'm taking a look at the month of April, and I believe that in the month of April I will actually grow my business by about 10, maybe even if things go extremely well, 20%, 25%, but realistically maybe 10 or 15%. And I will use about maybe $1,500. And so the whole situation with everything that I got going on right now is that I've really been looking into the different vaccination programs, because of my whole situation is that, the type of calves that I run, right, the situation that I have them in, it's a very it's like the most difficult situation that you could ever be in terms of the cattle business. I mean, I'm talking about buying very, very high risk animals that are very lightweight. It's very risky and it's very difficult. And so I'm collecting as much information as I can. And as of right now, I got them on that vaccination program, the intranasal vaccination. But I also and I was taking a look at the different vaccinations, and I actually found another one that I think I could use. And I'm pretty certain I can use this one, but it's called Endovac. And Endovac, it's specifically to immunize, to help create an immunization against gram-negative bacteria. That includes E. coli and Salmonella, and Manhemia hemolytica, and a couple of other, pink eye too. I actually spoke about pink eye. I do a lot to mitigate pink eye, right? I spray my animals with the spray bottle, and I give them salt that has the insectant, or the insecticide in it. And I was actually looking at Endovac, and Endovac will actually help prevent pink eye as well. Substantially help prevent pink eye. It will actually help the animal against any gram-negative bacteria, and that also includes E. coli and Salmonella. And I know I haven't spoken about E. coli and Salmonella in about a year, but E. coli and Salmonella, I call it death diarrhea. Right, when usually what happens is, like in the summertime, when it starts getting warm and when it starts getting hot, the water will start kind of turning gunky, because the animals will be swimming around in it, and they'll poop in it, and then the water will dry up and it'll kind of turn sludgy. And when they drink that, they will get what I call death diarrhea disease. Right, I call it death diarrhea. If it's really bad, I actually have to treat it with antibiotics, and I usually treat it with oxytetracycline. Right, I talk about this all the time. I haven't talked about it in maybe 9 months, because it hasn't been, I haven't had my animals drinking pond water. Right, my animals have access to clean water, and so, but it will also help against Salmonella and E. coli. And Salmonella and E. coli, when it gets real bad, if it gets real bad, there are times when I treat animals for Salmonella and E. coli, and I will give them a shot of oxytetracycline when they have it. And so I was like, if I can give them a vaccination against what I call death diarrhea, right? Drinking dookie water, right? I don't know if whatever, I've talked about it in terms of, I call it poo-poo water disease. I call it all sorts of things, right? I mean, it's all the same thing. But if I can prevent the animals from having a death diarrhea disease and pink eye at the same time, and give them an overall immunization against gram-negative bacteria, which includes Manhemia hemolytica, that's very good. That's very good. And so and I found another, and so I was like, Endovac is very good, and Endovac is only $2.50 a dose. But I have to dose the animals twice. I have to give the animals 2 doses for it to work completely, and it's $2.50 a dose. So that's very good too, right? I mean, if I have to give, I know last year I was actually talking about this at the beginning of this year. I was talking about this too. I was actually thinking about vaccinating my animals for pink eye. I actually spoke about this because I had about 3 or 4 animals last year that got pink eye really bad, and I was like, I'm treating it with antibiotics, and and also and one of the animals actually did not respond to the antibiotics. And one of the animals did not respond to the antibiotics, and I was like, 3 of the animals got antibiotics, and the antibiotics worked, and one of the animals got antibiotics, and the antibiotics did not work. So I was like, if I'm gonna spend money on antibiotics and fly spray and insecticide salt, then I can give them a $2.50 dose of Endovac. And the thing about Endovac is that I can also give it to the little baby calves. And so the little babies, because because the big problem with the little baby calves in terms of maternal antibodies, I talk about this maternal antibodies, is the big problem with the maternal antibodies is that when you give an animal a modified live vaccination via a subcutaneous injection, like when you inject that animal with a subcutaneous modified live vaccination, the animal's body thinks that the virus has entered the animal's system. So the maternal antibodies will actually attack the modified live vaccination, will actually attack the vaccination, thinking that the vaccination is a legitimate infection. But the vaccination is not a legitimate infection, right? I am putting the vaccination in the animal so that the animal can mount its own defense system, can mount its own immune system, right? But the maternal antibody does not know that. And so the maternal antibody will actually attack the vaccination, believing that the vaccination is a legitimate infection. And that's where the intranasal vaccination comes into play, right? The intranasal vaccination, when you give the animal the vaccination up the nose, it enters a different pathway, and the absorption of the vaccination is much more rapid. But the big problem with the intranasal vaccination is that it only really protects against Mannheimia hemolytica and BRD. It doesn't protect against BVD and I believe leukotoxins. And so I've been looking into this whole thing, right? I've been looking into this whole thing. What's the best vaccination program that I can come up with for my animals? And also I need to consider that I am bringing home a lot of animals that actually have maternal antibodies. This is very important to understand, right? I'm not bringing home 350, 450 pound, stocker cattle. I'm bringing home legitimate stocker calves. Right, this is very important, right? All of this is very important. There's a lot going on, and the thing about the whole thing is, if it was easy, everybody would do it. All right, I talk about this all the time. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Opinions aren't going to get you paid. At the end of the day, if you want to die poor by yourself, then have fun dying poor. I'm not going down with you. All right, it's very important. All of this stuff is very important. Okay, it's very important to understand this stuff. It's very important. All right, and there's a reason why I use certain vaccinations at certain times. Okay, there's a reason that I use certain vaccinations at certain times. I'm going to use I use an intranasal vaccination 24 hours after the animals get here, because I don't, vaccinating them the moment that their feet hit my farm is not a good idea, because the immune system doesn't work very well when the animal's very highly stressed. And and et cetera, I use an intranasal vaccination, and then I'm going to give, but when I give them the intranasal vaccination, I'm also going to give them a shot of Endovac. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, when I'm actually giving the animal a dosage of and for the real small animals, I may just, I'm going to have to figure it out. What am I going to do? Because the thing about the maternal antibodies is that the animal actually obtains the maternal antibodies when they drink the colostrum. When they drink the first milk from the mother cow, they actually obtain all of their antibodies then. And those antibodies effectively last for about 6 months, anywhere from 2 to 6 months. And so even if the animal is not drinking any more milk, they will actually still have the antibodies. And those antibodies, when you inject a calf with a modified live vaccination, the animal, the antibodies inside of the animal actually thinks that the animal has a legitimate infection. And so the antibodies will actually attack the vaccination, and that's why the vaccination does not really work. There is a very realistic possibility that the vaccination does not work on a smaller animal, an animal that is under 6 months old. And so, you know, I use the intranasal vaccination, but that intranasal vaccination does not protect against BVD, and it does not protect against leukotoxins, I believe it's what it's called. And you know, and so I figured, but I can give them a shot of Endovac. If I give them a shot of Endovac, it will give them a broad spectrum immunization against gram-negative bacteria. And gram-negative bacteria includes Salmonella, E. coli, and Mannheimia hemolytica, and pink eye, and foot rot. And I believe that, you know, and you know, especially when I'm going to take these animals over to a lease property, you know, having that immunization against Salmonella and E. coli is going to be very important, because they only have access to pond water. They only have access to pond water. They don't have access to city water. I don't have any city water on my lease property. And so if they're going to be drinking pond water, I don't want them having Salmonella and E. coli, and then I don't know it, and then I show up, you know, 3 or 4 days later, and they've already had E. coli and Salmonella for 3 or 4 days, and I didn't know it, right? And now I have, and then, you know, I have to treat it, but the animals already had it for several days. You know, I don't want them, you know, having, you know, that situation. And I also, if I can reduce the outbreak of pink eye costs me money. Right, I have to treat pink eye. You know, I have to buy antibiotics for pink eye. If the animal's 500 pounds and I have to give them a treatment for pink eye, I mean, that takes you know, like a 20, $25, $30 worth of antibiotics. Right, I mean, so I'm gonna have to pay for that anyway. So if I can give them a dose of Endovac and have Endovac, and I have to give 2 doses of Endovac, but each dose of Endovac is only $2.50 per dose. So if I just invest $5 per animal, I can effectively give them a broad spectrum immunization against effectively a vast number of gram-negative bacteria. So, you know, and also I can actually give this Endovac to real small animals. I can give it to animals that have maternal antibodies. So that's very good too. And so when I give them the nasal gen, I'm also going to give them a shot of Endovac 2 or 3 weeks later, when I follow up their medication program with more vaccinations. I will give them their second dose of Endovac, and then the animal should effectively be vaccinated for the next 6 months. And I've actually determined right now, you know, because if you take a look at the animals' feed, they're not even eating it. And you know, I'm really only feeding about maybe 5 buckets a day of grain. Maybe I'm feeding 5 buckets a day. You know, I'm actually, you know, I'm not really even, okay. Because my business, it doesn't really cost me, you know, right now the weather's good. I have a lot of grass, you know, I have a large amount of grass. You know, the animals, they're not even eating the feed, even if I give it to them, they're not eating it. And in terms of the growth stage, the growth development of the grass, you know, I'm taking a hard look at the grass, you know, and I've taken a look at the grass, and, you know, the grass is somewhere around 10 inches tall, maybe a foot tall. And I actually took a hard look at it yesterday, and there's a lot of flag leaves across the field. And so, you know, I'm actually thinking that the energy concentration of the grass is starting to drop a little bit too significantly. And so I'm actually going to start feeding a third of the grain diet as a flat out distiller grains. And so, you know, I want to go over this idea. Okay, so because an animal, depending on how much they eat, you know, because if an animal does not have access to effectively as much food as they want, they cannot effectively fill up their entire room and space, right? But my animals here, they are effectively on a buffet 24/7. My animals can eat as much as they want all the time, and the food is very high quality. Right, that's effectively what's going on right now with the animals, right? My animals can effectively eat as much as they want, and the food is very high quality. It doesn't matter what they eat. They can eat the grass, they can eat the grain. It's all very high quality, right? I mean, my animals are conditioning very well. They're putting on a lot of weight. They look very good, etc., etc. And so, you know, I'm taking a look at the grass portion of their diet. And you know, I actually think that the energy concentration of the grass is actually starting to fall a little bit too much. And in all honesty, you know, if I had a whole bunch of corn, I would actually be supplementing them with just corn right now, right? I actually talk about this. You know, when I have a bunch of grass like this, I actually prefer to supplement with just straight corn. right? I talk about this, in terms of, but I don't have, but I actually have distiller grains right now. I have distiller grains, and the thing about distiller grains is that the energy concentration of distiller grains is actually higher than corn, but the protein concentration is also drastically higher. The protein concentration of distiller grains is very high. It's like 25-30%. And so, you got to be careful with giving the animals acidosis from too much protein. But I'm taking a look at it, and I'm like, if I feed 30%, because I've been feeding my animals grain, right? I've been feeding my animals grain for several months now. I've been giving them this total mixed ration, and I've been collecting information on how much they're eating, right? And so I've effectively determined, okay, these animals are going to eat about 4 buckets of grain. They'll eat about 5 buckets of grain, 4 buckets of grain, 4.5, 5 buckets of grain. And if I'm going to feed a third of their grain portion in distiller grains to boost their energy ration. All right, and so effectively what that's going to look like is that I anticipate that the animals are eating maybe a third of their diet. They're eating about 1/3 of their diet in grain a day. I give them grain-free choice. I let them eat as much as they want. Whatever they want to eat, they can eat it, right? Whatever they want to eat, they can eat it, and whatever, right? And and I take a look at the situation, and I'm not going to feed them a total mixed ration grain anymore. I'm not going to feed them entirely a total mixed ration grain anymore. I'm going to change out a third of the total mixed ration for a dry distiller grains. And I'm just going to feed them flat out dry distiller grains. And the reason that I'm going to do that is to increase the amount of energy in their diet. And that's effectively going to be like me feeding a third of their diet. I'm effectively going to be feeding about maybe a third of 1/4 of their diet. So about 7% of their diet, 7 to 10% of their diet is effectively just going to be straight distiller grains. All right, I'm going to be giving them about 7 to 10% of their diet in straight distiller grains. And the reason that I'm going to do that is to boost their energy intake. And I talk about this, all the time, in terms of growing grass. Why is it not a good idea to have your animals on just grass all the time? And why does that happen? Because, okay, grass is a dynamic situation. Grass is very dynamic. Depending on what stage of development your grass is in, it will the feed values of the grass will change. Depending on what the weather is, the feed values of the grass will change. Grass is not, if grass popped out of the ground and it was always going to be 65% energy and 14% protein and have all of the vitamins and minerals in perfect ratios for every single animal to effectively put on 3 pounds a day. If that was the situation, then sure, you could feed grass all the time. But that's not what happens in real life, right? When grass first germinates out of the ground, the biomass per acre is not very high. The biomass per square footage is not very high. The protein concentrations are astronomical. The energy concentrations are astronomical. The animal, they will not fill up their entire rumen in eating the grass, and they will only fill up a portion of their rumen in eating the grass. But the grass that they do eat will have a astronomical amount of protein and energy in it, and then they'll bloat. And in a worst case scenario, it's actually grown in a little bit. It's actually 2 or 3 inches tall. The protein concentrations are still astronomical. The energy concentrations are still astronomical, and the animal is actually able to, when they eat the grass, they're actually able to, effectively fill about half their rumen. And if they fill half of their rumen on that protein and that energy, they're going to develop massive levels of acidosis. They're going to bloat. I've actually had 2 animals die from bloating on grass. I've just had 2 animals die from bloating on grass. All right, it's happened to me twice. All right, and that's how I know. All right, that's how I know. If you want to know how I know, that's how I know. All right, I've actually had 2 animals die from eating grass. They bloated to death eating grass. And so, in a realistic situation, you need to supplement grass, and you're effectively going to have to supplement it all the time. All right, I don't suggest feeding animals on straight grass. All right, unless you are in a situation where you are some kind of a grass growing magician, and you can make grass appear out of the ground at 14% protein and 65% digestibility with the exact mineral ratios that are required for properly conditioning an animal. If you can do it, then do it. Is it really possible? I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's impossible. Do I manage to do that? No, I don't. All right, no, I don't. All right, it's that's not how it works. All right, because grass enters different stages of development, and depending on what kind of fertilizer you use, it will affect the feed values of the grass. And so, but when grass is like this, the animals, when the grass is 7 to 10 inches tall, the animals are effectively able to accumulate as much food as they want. I don't have to be worried about filling their rumen. Their rumen is completely filled with food. And distiller grains, the energy concentration of distiller grains is drastically higher than grass like this. And the protein concentration is also drastically higher than the grass like this. And so when the animals, they don't need to eat as much distiller grains, so it will fill up less of their stomach space and they will accumulate more energy. Long story short, that's why distiller grains are so good. And that's also why something like corn is so good too. Corn, the energy concentration of corn is high. The energy concentration of distiller grains is even higher than corn. I'm effectively going to be feeding about 7 to 10% of the animal's diet in distiller grains. All right, I'm effectively going to be feeding about 7 to 10% of the animal's diet in distiller grains as of right this moment. I have them on grass. All right, and the grass is 7 to 10 inches tall. When the animals eat this grass, they are able to accumulate enough biomass of food to fill up their entire rumen. And I don't have to worry about filling up the rumen. I produce, giving them more food in terms of more volume of food. I don't have to worry about giving them more volume of food. All right, I don't have to think about, oh well, I need to give them a total mixed ration because they need to eat 2% of their body weight. They're already accumulating enough food mass to effectively completely fill their rumen. I just want to increase the amount of energy in their diet. So I'm going to do that by giving them about 10% of their diet in distiller grains. And the whole thing about, conditioning an animal properly, and why is it so important to understand how to condition an animal properly, is because the feed yards want animals that are conditioned properly. That's why. And if you don't do business with the feed yards, you're probably not going to make any money. All right, Billy Joe Bob is not going to buy all of your cattle. All right, Billy Joe Bob is not going to, buy all your cattle forever. The feed yards will buy all of your cattle. All of them, every single last one of them. All right, and they will give you the commodity price for them. Granted that you have the right type of cattle. All right, and why do I also not, but if you're not putting on, if you're not putting on, if you're not putting on 2.5, 3, if you're not putting on 2 to 2.5 pounds a day at least, your animals are not going to condition properly. Okay, your animal needs to put on at least 1.5 pounds to effectively just maintain their current. Granted that they're probably under about 900 pounds. If they put on about if they're somewhere between 200 and 500 pounds, it might be as little as 1 pound a day. But if they're somewhere between 500 and 1,000 pounds, they're going to have to put on at least about 1.5 pounds a day to maintain their current conditioning standard. All right, and if you do not increase their conditioning, if you have animals, and most animals, they're not going to be at a body conditioning score of 6 when they're a 200-pound calf. All right, most animals are not going to be at a conditioning score of 6 when they're 200 pounds. When they're 300 pounds, they're not going to be at a conditioning score of 6, okay? Most of them are not. And so, realistically, we have to consider increasing the conditioning score. All right, for almost every animal, you will have to increase the conditioning score, almost all of them. And how do you increase the conditioning score of an animal? You need to put on more than about 2 to 2.5 pounds a day. All right, because you also need to consider that the animal's frame is growing. They're actually developing more bone mass. They're getting taller, they're getting wider, they're getting longer, right? When you have a 250-pound animal, when you have a 350-pound animal, even if you have a 550-pound animal, that animal's frame is actually still growing. So for that animal to legitimately become obese, you need to actually put on a substantial, you need to be putting on probably over 2 to 2.5 pounds a day per animal. For most animals, granted that you have like a medium large frame, number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame animal, if you have some miniature Angus, right, if you have some miniature, which I don't suggest I would not, but at the end of the day, it's a free country, you can do whatever you want. I've always said when it comes to cattle, I would highly suggest that for making money, you are much more likely to make money in the commercial beef industry. All right, the commercial beef industry, that's where the most money is. The most money. the most money, more money than you could ever imagine. All right, commodities are a massive market. Massive market. I mean, people are buying and selling beef all the time. All right, and so, in terms of money, I mean, I would highly suggest buying a beef animal. Choose one. There are hundreds of them. I mean, Brangus, Angus, Simmentals, Cimbras, all sorts of beef animals everywhere. Herefords, Brafords, black, white face. There are many types of beef animals. Choose one. Choose your favorite. All right, you're effectively going to get commodity prices for any of these beef animals, granted that you have proper conditioning on them and you have actually raised them to a commercial standard. You will if you don't want to run Angus cattle, then you don't have to. All right, Charolais, whatever you want. Okay, choose a beef animal. I would highly suggest choosing a beef animal. You're not going to make any money on your Longhorns, and I know that that's hard to whatever, but you're not going to make any money on your Longhorns. If you legitimately replaced your Longhorn animal with any sort of a beef animal and you started conditioning your animals properly and selling your animals, you would effectively make double the money for the exact same amount of work. All right, just choose a beef animal, any beef animal that you want. Beefmaster, Brangus, Brafords, Angus, Charolais, Black White Face, Smokies, whatever, Okies, whatever you want. Whatever you want, choose a beef animal. Choose the coolest one that you can find. St. Gertrude's, it doesn't matter. All right, as long as it's a beef animal. And if it's a beef animal, you will get more or less commodity prices, granted that you are actually raising the animal to a commercial standard. All right, if you're really about money and you're really going to get into the cattle business for money, I mean, look into more like a Angus type cattle. Black Angus is kind of like the commercial standard. Okay, Red Angus is also up there too. Red Angus and Black Angus, they're the commercial cattle standard in America. All right, if you're in China, it's going to be different. If you're in Japan, it's going to be different, right? I mean, depending on where you are in the world, I mean, the commercial standard for the cattle is going to be different. But in America, the commercial standard is effectively Angus. And then it's, the four major beef animals in our commercial market is Angus, Hereford, Charolais, and Brahma. Effectively. All right, effectively, those are the four. Those are the four biggest ones. And then you have, and Simmental and Balancers and whatever, black Simmentals. And, they're all, I consider them part of the Angus situation. I don't know the difference between a Simmental, black Simmental, and a black Angus. I don't. All right, to me, it's effectively the same thing. All right, and so, I did go ahead and I bought some fertilizer this morning. I'll be increasing the size of my business by about 15 to 20%. I found something that I can do to increase the vaccinate to better the vaccination program for the animals. I'm actually going to be and I was actually saying that I think that my business is going to cost about $2,500 a month to run, but that's not true. I actually think that my business is going to cost $1,500 to $2,000. I think I overshot the budget. And so it's going to cost me less. I don't think it's going to cost me as much. I think that it's going to cost me about $1,500 to run my business. And my profits are going to go up by about 10. If things go very well, 20-25%. If things just kind of go okay, they'll go maybe 15-20%. If things don't go very well, 10 to 15%. Because here's another way to look at it. Okay, so if I sell 7 animals and I buy 14 animals, right? If I sell, and I've already said that the efficiency of my business is actually going up because I'm actually increasing the market weight of the animal, and I'm actually not spending any more money. My business effectively costs me the same amount of money, but I'm able to effectively raise the market weight of the animal, the target market weight for the animal, and I'm actually able to run more animals for more or less the same amount of money. Why am I doing that, or how am I doing that? Because I have a bunch of grass now, right? I have that leased property, and I have a large amount of common Bermuda on it, and the grass is doing very good. How do I know the grass is doing very good? I checked the animals when I went there, and they pooped when I got there, and I checked their manure score, and I also visibly checked the grass, right? The grass isn't going to seed or anything. It's in the middle stage of vegetation. Very good stuff. All right, plenty of biomass per acre, etc., etc. And so I'm actually not spending any more money. I'm actually increasing the size of my herd. My business effectively costs me the same amount of money every single month. I'm growing the size of my herd at about 20% a month. Because these animals, they're already ready for market. A large amount of these animals are already ready for market. I have animals already ready to go for market. I'll be going to market again in about 2 weeks, and the animals will be ready to go. And I'm actually able to increase the size of my herd, increase the overall weight of my herd, and it's not costing me any more money. It's not costing me any more than it already was. And so, I'm not having to put any more money into it, and I'm actually making more money. And so, long story short, things are going very well. But I mean, I don't really, but it's like, what does that even mean? I mean, I've been doing more or less. I've been doing very well for a long time. I mean, overall, if you take a look at the overall situation, I mean, I've been effectively doing better every single month for many years now, right? I mean, for 3 years, I've been doing drastically better every single month, right? I mean, my financials, my financials have effectively been going up on a vertical scale, right? I mean, for many years now, and for 3 years now or so, 2.5 years, my financials have effectively been going up on a vertical scale. And as of this moment, I've actually, the way that I'm describing the financial situation for me is that I've actually passed a point of inflection. The amount of money that I'm making is actually going to go up drastically. I may actually be doubling my, because I've already, I showed you my checks, right? I made about $13,500, right? I made about $13,700. And I didn't liquidate all my animals, right? I effectively just decided, what, if I pay myself $14,000, that will give me enough money to do whatever I want. So that's what I did, right? I paid myself 14 grand, right? And so, and I still have the rest of my animals. If you really think about it, my income is actually closer to about 23,000. 23,000 is a very realistic estimate. I will actually be doubling that over the next 5 months. That's what I mean by my income is actually going up on a vertical scale. I've actually passed the point of inflection, and in money already, it doesn't really even matter already. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, I can already buy it. It doesn't matter. Nobody's paying me to do anything. Trust me. I don't care. All right. Die tomorrow and take your deal with you. Nobody's paying me to do anything. All right. I make a massive amount of money. I don't know how else to put it. All right, it just is what it is. All right, trust me. Why, right? I mean, I don't care. I'm the one with the money. I make a ballistic amount of money. And if you think it's unfair, then go and start yourself a cattle farm. Nobody's stopping you, right? If you think you fell out of heaven to 7, talk is cheap. Let's see it. All right, you're probably actually closer to being a bum. All right, I don't play these games. All right, I don't have time for this nonsense, okay? I show you my results. I tell you exactly what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, I make a boatload of money. All right, and so, what does it matter? All right, I mean, at the end of the day, talk is cheap. I'm the one with the money, right? I make a boatload of money doing this. I make more money, I make more money on a 10.5 acre field than most people make on 500. All right, why would I care? At the end of the day, if it comes down to it, I'll just be rich by myself. Do I want that to happen? No, I don't. All right, I give away all of my information for free. This is exactly how I do it. This is exactly what I'm doing. All right, to a fine detail, I legitimately tell you these things. Exactly what I'm doing, exactly how I do it. All right, and if it comes down to it, I don't have time for this nonsense, and I don't have time for these games. I'll leave you to die poor. All right, either figure it out or don't. It doesn't matter to me. Do I want to see you die poor? No, I don't. All right, but a majority of people, it's already too late. All right, it's gonna take a lot of effort, okay? And chances are you understand everything that I'm saying. I'm not speaking some foreign, I'm not talking about differential calculus, right? I don't even know if that's a thing. Is differential calculus a thing? I don't know. I'm not talking about like I'm talking about grass coming out of the ground. And as the grass grows, the feed values change. You understand that, right? I'm not like giving you some incredibly difficult to understand thing. right? If you don't fertilize the grass properly, then the grass won't grow. You understand that, right? I mean, very simple stuff, right? Think about fertilizer like food for a plant, right? It's a food for a human being is like fertilizer for a plant. You understand that, right? It's not complicated. All right, it's not complicated. All right, the ground is negatively charged. You probably even understand that. Fertilizer has a charge to it. It's either negative or positive. You probably understand that. If it's a negative charge on a negative charge, the two negative charges repel against each other, right? Positive charges stick to negative charges. When it rains, the fertilizer molecule will actually dissolve into the water and create a solution. And that solution will repel against the soil because there is a negatively charged solution inside of that. The soil is negatively charged and the fertilizer solution is negatively charged. And in terms of the whole grass situation right now, you can tell that the field is very dry, right? This field is very dry, and I talk about this all the time. But when a field is very dry like this, it will actually take if water hits this field, if it rains really hard, water will actually hit this field, and the soil will be hydrophobic. The soil will actually repel the water. The water does not just go straight into the ground. It actually takes time for this soil to rehydrate. I always talk about dry soil like beef jerky. If you drop beef jerky into a glass of water, that beef jerky does not magically just rehydrate instantaneously, right? This ground is very dry. It hasn't rained in like 2 weeks. For this ground to rehydrate, it will take a substantial, it will take, if it rained about an inch, over the course of about 3 hours, and then the next day it rained another inch over the course of 3 hours, then at that point the ground will rehydrate. And so when I take a look at and I talk about this in terms of a broader idea, when fertilizing a field and when you have a dry field, right? I always talk, and the way that I describe this idea, right? I've described this idea as if you took a shovel and you scooped up a cubic foot of soil. If you just took a shovel and you scooped up a cubic foot of this soil, if that soil is dry, it will weigh significantly less than if the soil was completely wet, right? Very easy to understand. If you have a cubic foot of soil and that soil is bone dry, that soil will be very light compared to a soil that is completely filled with water. So you have to understand that when you fertilize, when the soil is very dry, number one, the soil will be hydrophobic. If it's going to dump rain on a hydrophobic field, it will wash your fertilizer away. So if there's going to be some monsoon and you have some extremely dry field, do not fertilize your field. It will just wash your fertilizer away. Let the monsoon happen. It will rehydrate your field and then fertilize it. And then granted that about a week later or so that it rains again. All right, don't fertilize your field and don't seed your field when there's going to be some torrential downpour. All right, if it's like a Category 3 hurricane coming through your city, then don't fertilize your field. All right, don't fertilize your field. Don't seed anything. Nothing. All right, it's just gonna wash your fertilizer away. It's gonna wash your seed away. All right, if your field is already sort of has moisture in it, it will retain water better. It will be less hydrophobic. And so and then at that point depending on the different circumstances, right? I mean, in my circumstance, what am I going to do? I'm going to put about 28 pounds of I'm going to put about 30 pounds of nitrogen per acre. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to put a lot of fertilizer. I'm going to put about 30 pounds of nitrogen per acre. And then I'm gonna do it on a 5:1:3 NPK ratio, and I also because I anticipate that here in about 2 weeks I'll get another opportunity to fertilize. I probably will. In about 2 weeks I'll get another opportunity to fertilize, and when I get another opportunity to fertilize, I can just put straight urea on my field. And when I was at the fertilizer yard today, I actually asked the person working at the fertilizer yard if they offer micronutrients, because I was actually talking about this. you know, I kind of want a drone so that I can spray micronutrients across my field. But you know, but then I know, do I really want to pay $30,000 for a drone? Not really, right? I mean, you know, I don't really want to pay $30,000 for a drone. All right, you know, I might as well just I can whatever, right? I don't really want to do that. One day, you know, if I have a large field and I want to spray herbicide or whatever, I'll think about it. You know, but you know, not right now. I don't want to pay $30,000 for a drone. And so you know, because I mean, you know, in all honesty, I would rather just buy more cattle. I would rather have more cattle than a $30,000 drone. Okay, I mean, I can buy it. It's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, I can buy it, but what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Just look at it? I mean, it's not gonna really do anything. What am I gonna do? Spray 10 acres? I mean, you know, it's not that good. I want one. I think it'll be cool, but you know, I'm not gonna buy one. But you know, the fertilizer yard will actually mix a micronutrient, will mix micronutrient minerals into the fertilizer for me. You know, if you just ask them, they'll do it for you, and it costs $20 a pound. And you need to mix in. If you tell them, oh, I'm going to put 100 pounds of fertilizer per acre, and they'll mix in whatever, you know, 3 pounds, you know, 3 pounds per tonnage. So if you're going to use 200 pounds of fertilizer per acre, maybe they'll do 1.5, but it costs, you know, it costs an extra $60, and I put a micronutrient mineral pack mixed into the fertilizer. And so that's cool too. You know, I got my micronutrient solution. I got my micronutrient problem fixed. I don't have to buy a $30,000 drone, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to buy a spray tank, and, you know, I just pay $60 and they'll mix it into the fertilizer for me. And also, I've also determined that I'm just gonna, in the fall, I'm not going to plant wheat again, and I'm just going to plant Bermuda across my field. And then, you know, because that Bermuda on the other property is very nice, and, you know, I don't have to replant it. And so I figured I'm just going to plant Bermuda on this field, and, you know, once a year, you know, I'll just come here and I'll drop it, you know, because the whole thing about this property is that I'm just going to get it to cash flow, and then I'm going to take a line of credit against it, right? That's the whole idea about this property. I'm not going to sit here and farm 10 acres for the rest of my life. All right, I've already decided, you know, I'm going to go in and do bigger things. So, you know, I'm going to open a line of credit against this property, leave some cattle here, produce cash flow, and then use that cash flow to pay for the debt, right? For the line of credit, I will use the cash flow to pay for the line of credit. And I'm just going to plant Bermuda here because Bermuda is perennial. And, you know, I can just come back and just drop cattle off once a year, whatever, you know, twice a year, 3 times a year, and just come and fertilize it, whatever, you know, once a month or once or 2 months. And then, you know, I can just fertilize it and then just drop the cattle off, and then I'll just haul them away, pay, you know, get my check, and then I'll just use that money to pay for the debt. All right, and so I'm actually going to replant this field with Bermuda in the fall. You know, I'm not gonna plant any more forage wheat on this field. I'm gonna plant straight Bermuda on this field. And then I'm going to open my line of credit here very soon. Maybe in about 5 months, I'll be opening my line of credit. And then I'll be good to go. And but that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.